Welcome, everyone, to our final Future is Female series. We have been so thrilled to provide you all with this incredible content with women in the Chattahoochee Valley who are making history. I'd like to thank TSYS Global Payments for sponsoring this event and always being a supporter of our Women in Business initiatives. They were with us from the beginning when we started this initiative and still continue to support these efforts. So a huge shout out to TSYS Global Payments. This is the final series for the Future is Female, and we're super excited that we have got women in energy, all working in some form of utilities, energy. This is going to be an interesting panel. And we've got an incredible moderator who's already participated in another one of our panels with Women on the Rise. And I just want to mention that these panels have been made up of our board members. So as you can see, our board's pretty stacked with females, which we're proud of, and some very interesting women that have a lot of insight and a lot of stories to share. So I'm going to turn it right on over to Crystal Shaheed, who is always been a friend of the chamber, a board member, works in special assets at Synovus. Crystal, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to moderate, and thanks to the other women on the panel as well. I know this is going to be an incredible session, and I'm looking forward to it. Crystal?
Thank you, Amy. I'm excited to be here today. This panel, I think you're going to find is going to be on fire. So with that, I'd like to introduce Lisa Smith with Georgia Power, Carolyn Bermudez with Liberty Utilities, and Tiana Avolo with AT&T. Ladies, we'd like to give the audience an opportunity to get to know you. In 30 seconds or less, tell us about you and your job and what you do on a daily basis. Just a quick elevator speech. And we'll kick it off with Lisa.
Well, good morning, everyone. Just so glad to be here. I want to say thank you to the Chamber for this opportunity to just engage and share. So in 30 seconds or less, so I am the West Region VP for Georgia Power. Our region is pretty much, if you take the state of Georgia and divide it in half, the West region is from the Tennessee line all the way down to Bainbridge. And really, when you think about utilities and electric utility and all of the traditional sense of what that means, my team and I, we do provide oversight to everything Georgia Power. But day to day, my job really is all about the community. It is about partnering with other community leaders and identifying ways to focus on community development. And so you'll see, as Amy shared, we're all on the chamber board. I serve on a lot of other boards as well. And I always try to contribute and be a leader in those roles because, again, it is all about the community. We also, on behalf of the company, I focus on ways to make donations that align with our company strategy. So you'll see Georgia Power sponsoring a lot of events. And it really is a great role. I love my job. I believe that for most of us, no matter what job we have, your passion will find you. And community service and really helping others is a passion of mine. So this is just, I just feel very blessed to be in this role. On a personal note, I've been married to my husband, Derek, for 24 years, and we have one son who's a senior. So I just ask everyone to keep us in your prayers. And that's
Awesome. Tiana, tell us a little bit about what you do every day.
Absolutely. Thank you again to the Chamber. It's definitely an honor for me to be here and speak on this panel today. I am the Regional Director of External and Legislative Affairs for AT&T Georgia. And my role is very similar to Lisa's. I do have a region that consists of 19 counties around the state of Georgia. and that goes from Cobb County over to the Alabama state line down to Columbus. I have been with the company for coming up on 2 years now internally, and I was a government affairs consultant prior to coming on internally. And I've just recently acquired Columbus in my region, I'd say about 2 months ago. So very happy to be here, very happy to be within the region. And, you know, my day-to-day job obviously looks very different. I do everything from promoting the public policy agenda of the company to community engagement to corporate sponsorships, you know, kind of bridging the gap between corporate and government when it comes to permitting and, you know, just ways that we can continue to increase our markets and, you know, our presence across the state. I guess on a personal note, I am based in Atlanta, an Atlanta native, born and raised here. And I have oh gosh, she's a freshman in high school now. So prayers are needed just as much as you, Lisa. But I'm, again, very happy to be here and excited to get to know everyone within the region.
Awesome. So nice to hear about that, Tiana. Carolyn, tell us about what you do every day.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone, and thanks to the Chamber for having me and including me on this panel. I am the president of Liberty Utilities, and what that represents is I run the day-to-day operation for the utility. It's a natural gas utility that provides natural gas service to a little over 55,000 customers in the Columbus area as well as Gainesville. That includes everything from providing compliance, pipeline compliance, safety, as well as making sure that we're delivering natural gas to all of our customers as needed. We serve residential, commercial, and industrial customers in those areas. In terms of my personal life, I'm married to, my husband and I have been married for over 30 years. My kids are all grown. And I have a wonderful 2-year-old granddaughter who has now become the woman of the house whenever she's present. We spend our time with our granddaughter and we love her dearly.
Well, we're going to dive into some questions for you ladies that I've been waiting to ask. We've now hit the year mark since COVID started spreading through the United States. It impacted not only our daily lives, but the economy. In what ways has COVID affected your business? And in what ways have we innovated through these times to be sustainable? And I'll open the floor to whoever would like to jump in.
Well, I could start from a natural gas perspective. COVID has been challenging for us because natural gas, unlike the other utilities, we must actually enter the home to perform our work because of safety concerns. So in the midst of COVID, where it was challenging entering customers' homes and performing safety checks of appliances and activating gas, we had to implement policies around how we engage with customers. And it was, you know, giving our employees the right to make the decision when they arrive at the home if they felt safe and comfortable entering the home. Of course, before we would make those appointments, we would ask the questions around exposure to anyone that, you know, with COVID or anyone in the home being sick. But we gave them the extra measure of ensuring that when they got to the home, they can visually see the individuals and understand what type of environment they were walking into. But we understood as well that there were certain things that we could not do in the middle of COVID. So we changed the type of work we perform. We delayed a lot of work in order to keep our employees safe. And we limited the amount of exposure our employees had to the public. But there are some things that we must do. We have to maintain our pipeline. We have to respond to leaks. And those things required us to enter the home. So one of the things that I would say COVID did for natural gas, it forced us, and it is forcing us, to be more innovative. We have to find ways to limit contact with the public. We have to find ways to either deactivate. It's hard to I don't know that there's any way to activate service without contact, but we have to find more ways to deactivate service so that we're limiting how much contact we have with the public. And we're really looking forward to finding more opportunities in our industry to do that.
Would anyone else like to share?
Sure, I'll be glad to share. So I think it's probably true of all utilities that we overall can be very conservative and traditional in our approach to business, and that's just how it is. And so COVID has presented some unique challenges because we just had to operate and think differently. And for us, it really came down to impacting our employees, our workforce, and then on the other hand, our customers. And so for our employees, all who could work from home, we have done that for over a year now. And for us, that is a big deal. You know, as I shared earlier, my team and I, we really focus on being out in the community, going to events, supporting events. How do you do that if you're not able to be out among others? Because for safety reasons, we did ask our employees to stay home for those who could. And so it has just been very interesting and enlightening to see how, just like we're doing today on this Zoom call, it can be done. And I think that's what we realize. We have gone from meeting maybe once a month in person as a team to engaging once a week, at least through some virtual platform, just to make sure that we're staying engaged. And we've created some fun ways of engaging, had external speakers to come in. We've had some community tours where we would usually invite people to go to a plant. We've done that virtually. And so, you know, to be honest with you, we have not skipped a beat. In some ways, it feels even busier because you don't really have that chance to cut things off. It's just a constant level of engagement. And then finally, with the customers, what we've had to do is really make sure, like we always do, to keep the customer at the center of everything. And so we've tried to really work with our residential customers on payments and just having some grace there. And then with our commercial and industrial customers, pivoting alongside them as they've experienced changes in how they maybe manufacture items and just really being a partner with them. So really the employees and the customers, I think it has gone well. My last point that I will share, we surveyed as a company all of those who've been teleworking about what our future should look like when we return back to the new normal. 98% of the employees said they still want some amount of teleworking. And again, that's a big deal for us.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Tiana?
Absolutely. So as you very well know, the work that AT&T does has been especially critical to millions of people and companies around the world. And so once the pandemic hit, we really had to rev up a lot of our community efforts in responding to COVID-19 and ensuring that, you know, as we transition to a virtual world, that, you know, we continue to move forward with keeping people connected. We did do it. We implemented a lot of programs as well, specifically working with families that have limited financial ability to offer low-cost broadband program called Access from AT&T, where they would pay a service fee of $10 a month with no contract and no fees. And we have since expanded that to families that participate in the National School and Lunch Program and Head Start. We also did work to connect or launch devices for nearly 400,000 students, supporting our K through 12 districts, our departments of education, and colleges and universities across the nation. Specifically here in Georgia, we did work to with Governor Kemp to help bridge the homework gap for students. As we very well know, education was at the top of our priority, making sure that we afforded students the ability to connect virtually and to continue their studies. And so we did contribute, to the Georgia Foundation for Public Education, which provided Wi-Fi on buses and deployed them out in areas where, rural areas specifically where service was not available. Again, it's not to say that we haven't faced the struggles that everyone else has. From an internal standpoint, our company has been mostly virtual since last year. We do have some employees that were considered essential, like our technicians, our retail associates that did have to sort of brave the conditions and continue to serve the community. But I will say, as a telecommunications company, teleworking is not something that's foreign to us. So we were able to somewhat pivot and not miss a beat. And, specifically for external affairs, taking away that in-person ability to go out and connect in the community has been somewhat of a struggle for us, but we are continuing to find ways to still be able to do that, but also keeping our customers and our community and our employees safe while doing so.
What I heard from all three of you is that you pivoted and kept your employees in mind, which I think during the time of COVID was probably clutch and has made your employees more loyal to your company probably than anything else. But at the center of that, you kept the customers in mind. And I think as a customer, for all three of you, I believe, I'm happy to know that y'all were thinking of little old me in all of this. But great stories of how you pivoted and made things work, particularly with that work from home piece. I think people will appreciate that. And really, I think that's the future for a lot of our industries. So I'm going to move to some questions that are about y'all personally. Who has had the greatest impact or influence on you as a professional? And I'm going to open the floor to anyone who'd like to answer.
Well, I can talk, so y'all. I'll just briefly share. I really thought about this question, and like I'm sure everyone on this panel today, if you think about your background, whether it's your family or professors, teachers, we've had a lot of great influencers, mentors. But when I really thought about who's impacted me professionally the most, I had the opportunity to work with a gentleman, his name is Pedro Cherry, a couple of times in my career. And I feel like as women sometimes, I've seen it play out, I've experienced it, especially if you work in a male-dominated industry. Sometimes the feedback is going to always be nice. There's a little kind of nervousness there about being very direct with a female employee. But that's not Pedro. Pedro would give you the good, bad, and the ugly, and he would push you. He pushed me. He put me in uncomfortable situations so that I could grow. And more than anyone else in my career, I grew under his leadership. He made me feel valued. He asked my opinion on things. He invited me to be at the table, even when it wasn't within my circle or umbrella of influence. And so he gave me opportunities. And the way that I really think about what he did is I try to do the same thing. I really try to encourage and push and promote others because at the end of the day, it makes our company overall better. But then the real reward is seeing those employees grow. And so I would have to just say hats off to Pedro Cherry and his leadership.
So I'll share mine, and it's very similar to Lisa. I've had quite a few influencers in my life and in my professional career, but similar to Lisa, I had an African-American gentleman, Melvin Williams, who was very similar to Pedro. Melvin challenged me to step outside my comfort zone. He forced me to engage at levels that I had not prior to that. But the one thing that Melvin provided me was exposure. He exposed me to the senior leaderships of the company and helped me navigate the waters around me in terms of expectations, delivery, and performance. He really did. And one of the things that Melvin has always taught us, he had a phrase that went, too much that has been given, there's much that is expected. So it wasn't a matter of paying it forward. He required us to pay it forward. We had to reach back and mentor and engage with others in the organization, giving them the same opportunity we were given. And he demanded that of us. With Melvin, there were always people that would call me and say, Melvin asked me to reach out to you. And I could never say no. I could never say no. That was not acceptable. But one of the things I will say about him is, you know, he provided the feedback and it was candid and sometimes it was even brutal, but it was needed because I agree with Lisa. I think there is a tendency that women not get the appropriate feedback in the professional community because there's this fear that women cannot handle it. And not only did he give me that feedback, but he helped me understand how to improve upon it. He helped me understand what I needed to do to make it better. And he gave me a path forward. And it is, I would say, for me, the biggest influence in my life professionally has been with Melvin Williams.
Awesome. I mean, the exposure, paying it forward, opportunities, and just really stepping out of your comfort zone. I mean, you know, and knowing you have that support behind you. I mean, I think that's super important, both in corporate world and in your personal life. Moving on to that and how we pay it forward. Tell me a little bit about your management style. And anyone can jump in here. You know, you've got an opportunity to mentor and guide the next generation. So tell me about your management style.
I'll go on. So I think I've always taken somewhat of the perspective of really understanding what needs are before stepping into a place of leadership. You know, I would venture out to say I've spent most of my life being somewhat of an introverted person, kind of, you know, being in the background and fully assessing the situation before jumping out and making my voice heard or taking a step forward. And I think that has really helped me to have more of a broad understanding of what needs to be done. You know, it's very hard to be a leader if you're not really fully understanding the viewpoints of others and opening opportunities for collaboration, you know, welcoming different points of views. And, you know, I guess, you know, being a middle child of 5, I somewhat had this innate ability to kind of be in the background and be somewhat overlooked, but also understand the needs of my siblings and understanding, you know, individuality. And so I think for me, I've been fortunate to start out in the background or in the shadow of very, very powerful, very great leaders, and really understanding how that shapes, you know, your approach moving forward. And so I don't know if there's necessarily a word that explains it. You know, I think a lot of times I kind of felt like, oh, you know, if you're introverted and you're kind of in the background, you're not really speaking out and being flamboyant or, you know, vocal, then you don't come off as a strong leader. But I think I've taken the opposite approach and just really kind of fade off into the distance. But then, you know, being able to, like I said, fully assess the situation and take in the needs and the consideration of other people. You know, I think that being in support roles are just as important as being in leadership roles, and you get to really get the big picture. You get to understand the ins and outs of how things work, and so that's kind of been my approach up to this point.
We're excited that you are stepping into the light, and not, you know, I think understanding all the needs is important as well. So glad to see you moving forward and understanding how we all play our role in all of this. Now, 20 years ago, we were probably all either starting out in our careers, or we'd had a few years under our belt and are maybe had some pitfalls or something, or some successes early on. What advice would you give yourself 20 years ago to prepare for the future? And I want to hear from all three of you ladies.
I'll be glad to share that. You know, I guess growing up and not really having family members who worked in corporate America, it was a learning process along the way. And so I certainly realized the value of hard work and, you know, just being committed and all in with your profession. But I did not realize the value of relationships. And so the older I get, the more I realize relationships drive everything. And so if someone had told me 20 years ago, you have to be intentional about building true, genuine relationships, I think I would have been more willing and able to take more risks earlier. But that would be my number one thing, and is that I tell other employees when I speak at public forums, relationships drive everything. It's all about who you trust. Who do you invite to be with you at a meeting? Who do you invite to be a part of your team? It's not going to be based solely on how well they work. That is a given. Usually, if you're at a company or something like that, you've already shown that you can work, that you're intelligent, you're committed. It's relationships, that's the extra piece. And whether it's politics or whatever, community leadership, it's about building genuine, authentic relationships based on trust.
So I would say for me, 20 years ago, I agree with many of the things Lisa shared. I was raised a similar way, that I was taught you keep your head down, you work hard, things will come. And that's what I did. I kept my head down, I worked hard, and nothing came. And I discovered later that exposure and similar to what Lisa said, relationship matters. And not just relationship with those that work with you, but relationships at the top. You've got to have that exposure, especially when you're in an organization as large as the organization was I was a part of, with multiple states, locations, and you're not necessarily exposed to those that are making a decision and those that are in the room. If you're not exposed to them, they have no idea of what your performance is and your abilities. And I didn't understand that. I really did believe that it was all about how hard I worked, how much I put into my daily activities and the results. And although my results were really good and I performed well, I never saw myself progressing. And it wasn't until I met someone that explained to me, that person had come from corporate office and explained to me that no one at corporate really knew who I was. They didn't know that it was because of all of my activities that Florida, at the time, that's the state that I was working in, was doing well and was performing well. They did not attribute any of that to me because they didn't know any of my background. But it wasn't until I got that exposure, I started to build those relationships, that my career started to really move. So what I would tell my younger self, because I'm introverted, I am severely introverted as well. You gotta put yourself out there. You've got to take risks, and you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to go into those environments and just be uncomfortable and allow yourself to become comfortable in those situations. So that would be the advice that I would tell my younger self, because so much I missed out on earlier because I just felt it was all about hard work and I did not understand the importance of exposure.
So I guess for me, I would, I don't know about 20 years ago, but I would definitely tell my younger self to be adaptable. One thing I have learned just from the start of my career is that we can never fully plan things out perfectly. You know, I kind of went through a period where I wanted to figure out exactly what I wanted to do, and I didn't necessarily know how to get there, but I knew what I wanted to do. And I didn't take the time to really understand how the current moment, you know, would lead me into those areas. You know, it's something that I guess I've struggled with in most instances, being somewhat of the youngest person on my team, or just, you know, wherever I worked, and having a constant comparison and looking at those that had 10, 20 years on me and say, oh, well, how do I get there? And why, you know, why am I not getting there quick enough? And not understanding that a lot of time these people were in these positions because they were flexible. They learned how to adapt. They learned how to take full advantage of every opportunity that they had. And understanding that, you know, life gives you curveballs. You cannot, as you know, obviously we're in an environment now where we realize we could have never expected the pandemic and how that has affected us. And I think if anything, it has taught us all that we have to be adaptable. We have to, you know, pick up and keep going, and as if we've never missed a beat. And so I would say that my career has been a testament of that, and just, you know, embracing those moments, embracing the present, and, you know, understanding, even if you don't see the full picture at the moment, just knowing that every opportunity that we have and every situation that we're in leads to a big picture somewhere.
Talked about the value of relationships, who you trust. That's key. I think that's a key takeaway for me, and being adaptable and getting that sponsorship and building those relationships. Advice that I think we can all use now, but for our younger listeners, knowing that this is sage advice, and knowing that this is something that, hey, these are things I can implement now. What can I do now to advance in my career? You all have hit the nail on the head in a lot of ways, and I think that will benefit someone listening today. So, in the work that you do, and in the influential positions that you're in, how do you handle work-life balance, especially now that we're in COVID? It's open to anyone. I'm just taking notes, ladies. I'm taking notes. I've got lots of notes. So, so I'm waiting on the answers.
I would say for me, work-life balance, for me, that has changed over time. I think as I've matured in my career and my age, work-life balance, it does matter. You know, there's a saying that being successful should not make you miserable. And I think that's absolutely true. What I found in my career, however, is that over time, as I progressed in the organization and took on more and more responsibility, I saw that work-life balance start to erode because there was more demanding of your personal time. So once I progressed to certain levels, my dinners, my afternoons, my nights no longer belonged to me. There were always some functions or some activities you had to be a part of or you had to attend. And it does tend to blend into your personal life. What I found that was more beneficial for me is to try to do more of a work-life blend. I know you probably have heard the term before, than a work-life balance. Because balance, you know, what is balance? You know, you can say balancing more of your personal time or your professional time. But one of the things that helped is there were times where I could include my husband in certain activities. So I was blending the world. So we got to spend more time together in professional settings where we could blend our time together from a professional and personal level. I also took advantage of opportunities where I said, this will be my personal time. I allowed my time for me to recuperate, for me to step back and either spend time with my family, spend personal time with myself in order for me to rejuvenate myself and get ready for what was coming. And I think that's important. And I think we all just have to understand what is that time when you need it and take it. Because if you're miserable in your personal life or your professional life, no other part of that life is going to work. And I've learned that sometimes we just have got to say no. As African-American women, we believe we can conquer all, we can do all, we can be all. We cannot. At some point, you have to take the opportunity and say, not right now, or, I just can't do that today. And, we get pulled in many directions to participate in many different activities. Similar to my other panelists, I'm on many different boards. And I'm on boards from personal things that are important to me, personal organizations that I value. I'm on professional boards. Well, we have to really weigh that and understand what impact is all of that having on your life and your ability to function and be successful. And once you figure that out, I think everybody will understand what their balance or their blend needs to be. I don't think it's a one size fit all for people, but what I would say for me, what works for me is allowing myself the downtime when I need it and blending my world so that there are times where my professional world and my personal world get to enjoy each other, and I don't feel like I'm neglecting either one.
Yeah, I'd certainly love to just add to that. Carolyn is right on. So I don't believe work-life balance really exists, especially the more you grow in your career. Everybody's journey is different. I deal with a lot of mommy guilt, to be honest with you. Over the years, we've moved maybe 9 times. And so when I ask for your prayers for my son, it's because he's been pulled in so many different directions over the years. And so, just being a little vulnerable here today, when I moved to Columbus a couple of years ago, my husband and son stayed where they were, just so that our son could have the opportunity to finish high school and not be pulled again. And so, as I shared, everybody's journey is different, but I feel like I've realized we have decided as a family to make the sacrifice to really be in at work. And so I have found ways, like Carolyn said, to be intentional about my me time. And so every morning it's a cup of coffee, gospel music, Pandora, and an attitude of gratefulness. I think about, what it is that I'm grateful for, even if it's just another day. And that sets the tone for my day. That's my 20 minutes of me time. And then just traveling for my family and with some girlfriends, I don't sacrifice it, at least a couple of times a year. But other than that, I'm engaged, I'm checking emails, I'm serving somewhere, but that's just what we've decided to do as a family, and it's working for us.
Great decision for your son. I think, sometimes we tend to think that our children, understand what's going on from a work perspective and don't understand how that impacts them as well. So I think giving him that opportunity to graduate where he is with his friends is huge and will pay dividends in his future. So final question, and I want to hear from all 3 of you all. How has your industry evolved in the past decade? And what do you think will happen in your industry in the future? And I want to start with Tiana on this one.
Yes. So obviously, 5G has kind of been at the forefront of our evolution as a company and in our industry, creating ways that we can continue to connect virtually and creating opportunities to transform entire industries. And as we've noticed with some of the COVID-19 challenges, doctors are finding creative ways to connect virtually with patients. you know, creating opportunities to revolutionize healthcare. And we're just looking for opportunities to continue to advance that agenda and, you know, empower our communities with connectivity and empowering equity, which, you know, includes creating programs that prepare us to be everything from, you know, award-winning animators, sound engineers, directors, producers. As I don't know if you all know, we have recently merged or acquired Warner Media, and so we're now venturing off into a new platform where, you know, content is on the rise. And so as we continue to, like I said, enhance our 5G network, and, you know, this is something that takes place every day. We're working locally, you know, on the ground with our technicians to build our infrastructure for that. We're just looking for ways to continue to advance our world digitally. So that's kind of, you know, been at the top of our priority the last few years. It will continue to be on the list of things to do. And again, we're just, you know, happy to have support from our community and from our, you know, government officials and, you know, assisting us with making sure that we're building that infrastructure.
How about our ladies in energy as well?
Well, yeah, so I would speak about natural gas. You know, over the last decade or so, natural gas has become very abundant and it is very affordable. Unfortunately, in recent years, natural gas has become has been attacked. It's been attacked by environmentalists because of, you know, it's a fossil fuel, and we're seeing different cities, different states start to propose actions or certain initiatives that's trying to prevent natural gas from expanding into those areas and prohibiting new customer connects with natural gas. And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because there is space for natural gas, and natural gas has done a tremendous amount to clean to clean up itself in terms of the replacement of pipelines. So there is not a lot of leakage, and almost every state and a lot of these utilities take the environmental issues very seriously. And we're doing our part to self-police ourselves and making sure that we are a partner with the environment and not someone that is harming the environment. But we are still seeing these forces trying to limit the expansion of natural gas and its use. So we need to do more in order to become a clean energy. So there's a lot of things on the horizon with natural gas. We have renewable natural gas, which is a cleaner version of natural gas. And it also helps us deal with waste, be it various types of food waste or landfill waste. So we can take that and clean it and produce renewable natural gas. So as we think through where we're going in this country or even in the world, I don't think there's enough energy sources out there right now to replace all natural gas usage that exists. But I do think as a natural gas utilities, we need to do more and come up with more innovative ways to use natural gas and have natural gas become part of the solution as a renewable fuel source.
We've got to pay attention to that legislation. Okay, that's good to know. Go ahead, Lisa.
Absolutely the same with the electric, our whole industry. Really a focus on renewables. You'll see us moving more and more away from the traditional coal usage, and a lot of that is driven by legislation. So definitely a strong emphasis currently on limiting carbon emissions. You know, that's really one of the main areas of focus for us. So a lot more focus on solar. You'll continue to see new technology emerge that we will embrace. One of the things I would say, looking back 20 years ago, I never would have thought that we would not have local offices where people could go in and pay their bills. That was kind of our staple in the community. But we decided a few years ago to really look at the data and listen to our customers. And the majority of them were paying online and using other means for paying their bills. And so for us, we've shifted how we serve our customers based on what their behavior showed us. And so you'll continue to see things like that. You can pay your bill if you're at Kroger or Dollar General while you're shopping. It can be a part of your checkout process. There are over 4,000 locations, Walmart, where we've tried to make that process as simple as possible for customers. So really just in terms of renewables and how we serve our customers, I just think there's more and more to come.
Well, ladies, I want to thank you all for your time today. Do you all have any final thoughts or things that you'd just like to share with those watching today on any topic? No? All right. Well, I'm going to thank you for the copious notes that I've taken today. There's been so much that has been covered, but more the important piece is the value of the relationship. And for those of you, looking forward to serving with you on the board at the Chamber in the future, and hope that we can be together in person soon. So I want to thank you for your time, your wisdom, and your magic today, and sharing with us today. And I'm going to turn it back over to Amy.
Like you, I remember vigorously thinking it. Be adaptable, be comfortable, be uncomfortable. Relationships matter. Work-life balance, all the things that I needed to hear. I needed a refresher. I needed to hear these things and do it. I certainly drove it home. So thank you all for being here. And thank again TC's Global Payment for sponsoring this effort. And we hope everybody has a fantastic day. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.